Welcome back. It's time for another deep dive, and this time we're going to be tackling a fascinating figure, Hari Seldon, in Asimov's Forward the Foundation. I mean, talk about a legacy, right?
Absolutely. And from the looks of it, we've got quite a collection of material to go through.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to witness his rise and fall,
Mm-hmm.
as he kind of develops psychohistory.
Mm.
But it's all happening against this backdrop of this crumbling galactic empire.
Mm.
I mean,
Mm.
assassinations, robots, mentalics.
Yeah.
This is going to be quite a ride.
It's interesting how Forward the Foundation really gets into Seldon's struggles, right? It's not just the big picture stuff, but the man behind the legend.
Yeah. You see him dealing with political turmoil, personal loss,
Yeah.
even questioning psychohistory itself right from the
Yes,
start.
definitely. And you see this tension, too, between, intuition and mathematical certainty. It's a theme that keeps popping up throughout the book.
Yeah. Speaking of starting from the start,
Hmm.
right away we see Seldon frustrated with the slow progress of psychohistory.
Right. He wants those concrete equations.
Yeah.
He clashes with his colleague, Hugo Amaral, who leans heavily on intuition.
It's almost like Seldon doesn't trust anything but cold, hard math at this
But
point.
he's a mathematician at heart,
Right.
right? And so it's kind of this, conflict between can human behavior with all of its quirks and unpredictability truly be captured in a mathematical model? Or is intuition always going to be a part of understanding how society shifts?
It's a question that just lingers in the background as he's trying to refine psychohistory and navigate this really complex political landscape.
Yeah. And then you throw in the assassination of Cleon.
Right? Talk about throwing a wrench in the works.
Yeah.
I mean, the Empire's thrown into chaos, and I think for Seldon, it's a turning point.
For sure. The fragility of the empire becomes very real, and it kind of fuses urgency to, develop psychohistory even further.
It's like, okay, the darkness is coming. I need to get this done.
Exactly. The assassination highlights the very thing psychohistory is meant to, address.
Yeah. It's almost like psychohistory is meant to prevent that kind of instability.
Exactly. And it reminds us, that even the most powerful empires can crumble,
Yeah.
which is, a scary thought.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because, with all his calculations, Seldon couldn't predict this specific event.
Right. It really makes you think about the limits of psychohistory, right?
Yeah. Can you really predict individual actions versus, broader societal trends?
Well, that's the thing. Psychohistory, as Seldon's kind of designed it, is working on this massive scale, right?
Right.
It's about statistics and probabilities. It's not about like zeroing in on a single person's choices, especially when those choices are driven by like, hidden motives or personal agendas that no one else is aware of.
And then you've got Ito Demerzel, the Emperor's right hand
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
So much mystery surrounds this character.
Right? Sure.
There's this secret that Seldon's keeping about him, something he's forced to hide. And then Amaral brings up concerns for Demerzel's safety, and Seldon's reaction is so strange.
It's like he knows more than he's letting on. And that all ties back into the whole psychohistory question, too.
Absolutely.
We find out Demerzel's a robot.
A robot.
And Seldon knew this whole time and was forced to keep it quiet, which is just mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. I mean, if a robot who's operating outside, human psychology can influence history,
Right.
how accurate can psychohistory really be?
It shakes Seldon's confidence for sure.
Yeah.
He realizes even the most complex mathematical model might not be able to account for all the variables, especially when you have beings involved who just aren't playing by the rules of human behavior.
It makes you question everything.
Absolutely. And then you have Laskin Geranum entering the scene.
Oh, yeah, this charismatic figure emerging from the shadows.
Right, with this really powerful rhetoric, power from the one to the many.
And those descriptions of his rallies, that they're so vivid you can almost hear the roar of the crowd.
Mm.
And Seldon's watching him very carefully.
Where he's a shrewd observer.
Oh, yeah, especially after that incident with Geranum's followers, where Seldon shows he's not just a brainy academic. He can handle himself.
A bit of action there. Yeah, Geranum represents this wave of populism that's rising in the empire.
And Seldon sees him as a threat.
Absolutely. Someone who could, trigger the very collapse he's trying to prevent.
Yeah.
And then there's the fact that Geranum's past has been meticulously erased. Like someone went to a lot of trouble to hide his origins.
So suspicious. What's he hiding?
Right.
Yeah.
It's this big mystery that parallels the whole psychohistory thing in a way,
Yeah.
It's about looking for patterns, piecing together bits of information to see the bigger picture.
Like a puzzle. Seldon's using his analytical skills almost like he's been training for this moment by developing psychohistory.
It's like his ultimate test.
Yeah. And it's all happening against the backdrop of these political schemes and assassination attempts. And then Seldon's personal life takes a hit.
Oh, yeah. The loss of his adopted son, Raych.
Under such suspicious circumstances.
It's a devastating blow for Seldon, both personally and professionally.
And then Dors Venabili, his protector, she makes the ultimate sacrifice.
She steps in to shield Seldon from harm. It's a turning point in the story for sure.
It really is.
And it raises all these questions about the price of pursuing such a grand vision.
Right. These events, they're not just plot points. They show the human cost of Seldon's ambition.
Exactly.
He's driven to save humanity, but at what cost?
It makes you think about the sacrifices involved.
And the emotional toll of carrying the weight of civilizations on your shoulders.
Yeah. And it highlights that tension again between individual choices and the grand sweep of history. Psychohistory might predict broad trends, but it can account for sudden twists of fate, those moments that can change everything in an instant.
And speaking of the unpredictable, what about Wanda?
Seldon's granddaughter with her emerging mental abilities.
She's a fascinating new element in all of this.
She is. And it's like psychohistory itself is evolving, right?
Yeah.
Giving rise to individuals with powers we don't fully understand.
It's both exciting and a little scary.
Definitely. And as the Galactic Empire is falling apart with all the breakdowns and unrest, Seldon starts setting up the second foundation.
That secret organization of mentalics like Wanda.
Right. He's starting to realize that maybe just preserving knowledge and technology through the first foundation isn't enough.
He needs a group that can operate in the shadows. A group that can actually shape events.
Exactly.
Wow. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground here. The rise and fall of Hari Seldon facing this crumbling empire, political turmoil, personal loss, and this constantly evolving idea of psychohistory.
It's like we're watching a master strategist at work, but also a man grappling with very real human struggles.
So much to unpack here.
Yeah.
And it seems like we're just scratching the surface.
Absolutely. It's that commitment to his vision, Even with all the personal tragedies, he keeps going. He understands just how important this mission is. It's like a tragic hero, something out of Shakespeare.
It's amazing how he doesn't let grief consume him, It's almost like it pushes him to make sure psychohistory actually works.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, let's dive a little deeper into Wanda and that whole second foundation thing.
Yeah.
You were saying earlier that she represents a shift in how we think about psychohistory, moving from just prediction to actual intervention.
Right. Well, her abilities, being able to influence minds and even see glimpses of the future, it adds a whole other layer to psychohistory,
Okay.
It's not just about crunching numbers anymore. It's about potentially shaping events and guiding humanity towards a specific outcome. And that's where the second foundation comes in. Seldon creates this group of mentalics like Wanda to make that happen.
So the second foundation is like this hidden force working behind the scenes to make sure humanity survives. It's fascinating, but it's also a little unnerving. What exactly is their role? How do they operate? And what about the first foundation? How do they fit into all of this?
That's the beauty of Asimov's writing. He leaves so much open to interpretation. We know they're there. We know they have these incredible powers. But their methods and their true goals are still a mystery. It's like Seldon set up this grand experiment and trusted that these two foundations, with their unique strengths, would figure out how to work together and steer humanity in the right direction.
It's like he created two sides of the same coin. One working in the light of science and logic, and the other operating in the shadows of the mind. It's brilliant, but also risky. What if their goals clash? What if the second foundation becomes too powerful?
Well, that's something Asimov explores in later books, but in Forward the Foundation, Seldon seems confident that they'll do the right thing. That they understand human nature well enough and that they're committed to the greater good. They'll act as a safeguard to make sure humanity doesn't make the same mistakes all over again.
It's interesting how the second foundation also brings us back to that conflict between intuition and calculation. We've been talking about it with Seldon, right? The first foundation is all about logic and reason, but the second foundation embraces intuition and the power of the mind. It's like Seldon's acknowledging that you need both to navigate the complexities of history.
Exactly. He's not just a mathematician. He's a visionary. He understands that progress isn't just about science. It's about empathy, intuition, the ability to understand and adapt to how people behave.
We've talked about Seldon's successes.
Yeah.
His brilliance, his dedication to his vision. But we can't forget the sacrifices he's had to make. The loss of his son, his protector, and watching the empire he's trying to save slowly crumble around him, that's got to weigh on a person.
It's a powerful reminder that even the greatest minds, the people with the best intentions, still experience pain and loss. The burden of his mission of trying to shape the future. It takes a toll on him. He gets older. He has moments of doubt, but he never gives up. He's a symbol of resilience in the face of adversity.
And even with all that going on, he still finds moments of joy and connection. His relationship with Wanda and watching her develop her abilities, that's a glimmer of hope in all of this. It's like he's passing the torch to a new generation, trusting them to carry on his work.
It's a beautiful point,
Uh,
you know? Even with all the tragedy he goes through, Seldon never forgets about the human element. He knows the future he's fighting for isn't just about numbers and predictions. It's about people. It's about preserving human culture and knowledge. And he sees that potential in Wanda. This hope for a better future where humanity learns from its mistakes.
it's a powerful message, and it feels so relevant today with everything going on in the world.
Yeah.
Seldon's story reminds us that even when things feel hopeless, there's always a reason to keep fighting, and that knowledge is the key.
It reminds us that the future isn't set in stone. You know, it's shaped by the choices we make, the actions we take, and the values we hold on to.
Asimov, through Seldon, manages to bring together all these complex ideas, the power of science, the way our minds work, the weight of history, the responsibility of leadership. It's incredible.
And let's not forget his imagination. I mean, this vast galactic empire filled with different cultures and political factions, it's just amazing.
And even as this empire is collapsing, Seldon sets the stage for something new, the birth of the Foundation. It's a story about human ingenuity and resilience.
What do you think about Seldon's legacy? You know, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what stands out to you the most?
He's the architect of psychohistory, a visionary who dared to predict the future, but he's also a leader who made tough choices, sacrificed so much, and ultimately paved the way for a new era. But I think what's most important is the message he sends. It's a message of hope that even in the face of overwhelming challenges, we can overcome and build a better future.
I couldn't agree more.
We've talked about so much, the assassination of Cleon Ilaskin Geranum coming onto the scene, Demerzel's true identity, Raych and Dors Wanda, and the Second Foundation. But there's still so much more to explore.
There is, I'm really curious to dig deeper into the Second Foundation and their role in all of this, how their methods and goals either align with or maybe even clash with the First Foundation. It's a really interesting dynamic.
We'll definitely have to continue this conversation another time to unpack all of that. But for now, let's just take a moment to appreciate Forward the Foundation and the enduring legacy of Hari Seldon. You know, it's fascinating how Asimov creates this atmosphere of, impending doom for the Foundation. But at the same time, he's planting these seeds of hope.
It's like a balancing act, right? The Empire is falling apart, but Seldon's out there setting up the foundations. It's a glimmer of light in all that darkness.
It really shows his foresight
Yeah.
and how well he understands human nature. I mean, he doesn't just predict the fall. He's actually preparing for it.
Yeah, he puts this plan into motion that spans centuries. I mean, can you imagine? All to try and minimize the damage and create a path for a new era.
And that plan, it all comes down to those two foundations, right? Two very different ways of shaping the future. The first foundation, with all their focus on science and technology, they're going to have to rebuild civilization from scratch.
Right. And then you have the Second Foundation, who are shrouded in secrecy. What do you think about their role in all of this?
Well, we know they're composed of mentalics like Wanda,
Yeah.
right? They operate on a whole other level, wielding powers that we can barely even comprehend.
It's almost like they have a dual purpose. On the one hand, they're there to safeguard the Seldon plan, making sure it stays on track even when things go sideways. But they're also meant to guide humanity towards a better path. Maybe even prevent the First Foundation from making the same mistakes as the Empire.
So they're like this fail-safe, a guiding hand working behind the scenes, protecting the future from external threats, but also from the First Foundation potentially becoming corrupt.
Exactly. They're the guardians of Seldon's vision, making sure his plan unfolds as intended even as the First Foundation is busy building a new empire. It's a brilliant idea, but kind of creepy too, right? This secret organization pulling strings behind the curtain, it makes you think about free will and whether it's okay to intervene like that.
It's a tough question. You need someone to make sure humanity doesn't destroy itself again. But how much control is too much? What if the Second Foundation becomes like a puppet master?
It's definitely something to consider. And Asimov explores those ideas in later books. But in Forward the Foundation, you get the sense that Seldon trusts them. He believes they'll do what's best for humanity.
And he sends Wanda and the other Mentalics off to establish the Second Foundation at Star's End.
Star's End, what a name.
It's so mysterious, right? You don't even know where it is. It adds to that whole idea that they're operating outside the normal power structures.
Yeah.
The location being a secret just reinforces how different they are.
And the name itself, Star's End. It's like they're at the edge of the galaxy beyond the known world. It makes you think that they're not bound by the same limitations as the First Foundation. Their power extends beyond space and time.
It's like they exist on a different plane, operating purely in the realm of thought and consciousness, shaping events from a vantage point that the first Foundation could never even imagine.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. It highlights the contrast between the two. One focused on rebuilding a physical empire, the other shaping the minds and spirits of humanity.
As we wrap up our deep dive into Forward the Foundation, I'm just blown away by Asimov's imagination. I mean, this story spans centuries. It's about the rise and fall of empires, the complexities of human nature, and above all, it's a story about hope.
And he tells it with such precision. His
Hmm.
writing is so clear and elegant. His ideas are deep, and his characters, even with all their flaws, they feel so real, so human.
Hari Seldon especially. He's brilliant. He makes mistakes, he's driven, he's compassionate, he goes through so much loss, but he never gives up on his vision.
He really embodies that human spirit of perseverance,
Mhm.
never giving up even when faced with incredible challenges.
And I think his legacy goes beyond the pages of this book. He makes you think critically about the future, about the power of knowledge, and about striving to make things better.
Absolutely. He inspires us to take action and to make choices that will lead to a brighter future.
And as we face our own uncertain times, I think Seldon's story offers a much-needed message of hope. It reminds us that even when things look bleak, we can plant those seeds of renewal and work towards something better.
It tells us that the future is not set in stone. It's up to us to shape it with the choices we make and the values we hold dear.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Forward the Foundation and the world of Hari Seldon. It's been a pleasure exploring this incredible story with you.
I agree. And I hope it leaves you thinking about the questions it raises and the possibilities it suggests.
And who knows, maybe we can all find ways to contribute to a better future, just like Hari Seldon did.
I think that's a great note to end on.